Okay, and then we bought it in 2020, the property in 2020. And then my husband just picked up the home. It's actually bigger than the weather TV, so because he wanted to get it out. Oh, really? Yeah. Yes, he's a police department. Okay. There's New York City. And then he likes the woodwork on the side, and cook on the side. Yeah. Around 1890, the original deed was burnt. But it was around.
Couldn't pick a better day for this. Initially, they were like,
It's gonna be hot.
It's, give it time.
that'll be nice.
We're still early.
Yeah.
Yesterday was warm.
Oh, it's supposed to be raining next week. All week. I mean, I don't know in what percentages, but they have to go again.
Yeah, last time I did this, it was raining.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah, I was like,
raining in the morning.
That's why I was thinking. I just did this, but they said, open February. Okay.
I think it can get hot.
Oh, I hope. We need rain.
We do need it.
It's bad.
This will be the maximum.
So, can I borrow your map? Sure. Just so you folks, he asked a great question. One I refused to answer. If you look at the map like this, you can see Jackson's route, his escape route, and then you can see the bridge that goes across the North River. It was right here. If you come down to where I am, and you look across to that last telephone pole, you get an idea of how big this bridge was. This bridge also had some unique features. It was the only bridge left, actually. All the rest of the bridges on the Shenandoah River had been burned, except for this bridge. Okay, so that's unique. The way that it was built is unique. It's the only one that had not steel, but iron girders, because of the distance it had to go. There are two islands in the stream out here, and each one of them had a support post going across. So I had a question that was asked: what was the mission that the cavalry had coming here? And that's really interesting, because there was a man named James Shields that was in charge of all the troops on this side of the river, and he had sent messages to Sprig Carroll saying, I want you to go to port, I want you to burn the bridge. A couple of days later, no, I don't want you to burn the bridge. Don't burn the bridge. A day later, another message comes through, burn the damn bridge, okay? And then finally, on the day of, message was, don't burn the bridge. So when Carroll got here, he probably had no idea what he was supposed to do, except raise havoc in Jackson's rear, right? So I would point out too, if you look down this road and you look at your map, the lower ford would have been the continuation of this road right here, and not used very often because the water was always deeper there. Okay, did that answer your question about? Okay, so anyways, they're actually back in 1862, just about midway between here and the corner there was a farrier that had a shop there. And so when Sprig Carroll's men came riding along here and everything, it would have been an open fire right there. So if they'd wanted to burn the bridge, it would have been awfully easy to do it, and they did not do it. What they did do is one of those artillery pieces Jim talked about was up on the other end of Main Street, right, or up on Main Street. The other one was right here. And the artillery piece would have been placed right exactly, I can't say exactly, but it would have been placed someplace right about in here. And it would have been pointing in that direction. Now there would have been a gun crew. They probably as Jackson rode through, probably with just bringing the artillery piece up, hadn't put it in place like Jim said. They had put it here, facing down the bridge. And basically for the purpose, if anybody tried to come across it, Jackson's camp, for almost all of his, about half of his men is just across the bridge in what's an area called New Haven. And actually you can go there and you can see the open field where they were encamped. So anyways, Jackson comes riding by, crosses the bridge, gets to the other side and sees this artillery piece being set up. And he thinks it's one of theirs. So he stands there for a few minutes, gesturing to them, and yelling, bring it across, we need it across over here, because, so it wouldn't be captured, right? And no response. There's a sergeant in charge of this piece. His name is Sergeant Gilday. And Sergeant Gilday looks across and says, he looks like an important person. So he loads up the artillery piece and fires the shot just as Jackson decides to go over to talk to the guys in the 37th Virginia. And so the shell supposedly lands over there. Probably if he'd been there, a lot of people theorize he might have been killed. But fortunately, he had other business to attend to. So they load the artillery piece up again, and they put solid shot in. Well, you would think if you're going to be here and men might be coming across, solid shot may not be a good round to have in your gun. Anyways, Jackson convinces those men in the 37th Virginia to come across the bridge. Now you're running across the bridge and you say, oh my God, there's an artillery piece loaded probably with canister, and at least the first couple of dozen people are not going to have a good day, right? And the Sergeant Gilday is here, and his men look at all the men coming across the bridge and they say, see you later. And they all head down to the lower ford. The only one person left here is just Sergeant Gilday, one person. So he has one chance. And what he says is, I can't kill a lot of people with what I have in my gun, but maybe what I can do is I can damage the bridge. So he decides to shoot through the side of the bridge, thinking that would cause the bridge itself maybe to collapse, okay? And he shoots through it, goes right through the wood, heads out into yonder, nothing. Well, Sergeant Gilday says, I don't have enough men here to reload it. So he leaves the gun here and heads back and follows his other men in that direction. And those men in the 37th Virginia, about 3 or 4 of them do get wounded, mostly from the bits of wood that come off the side of the bridge as the shot goes through. So you have a couple of men, a few men that are wounded, not severely, and trying to get across. Everybody else comes across, and by that time, everybody has left town as quick as they can. So when Gilday leaves, he doesn't have any horses. He just swims across the river and heads off to safety. All of those men that are part of the West Virginia, actually, the Pennsylvania cavalry, will go across and head back downriver. And as they do, if you look on your maps, if you look here, if you see where it says 1st West Virginia, U.S., and that's that blue route that the cavalry had used to come in, there's another one here. It says Yost House, Mrs. Yost, okay? And if you look at Mrs. Yost's house, there's a section of artillery there. And Jackson's men are here, and they end up firing their 2 artillery pieces across the river to Jackson's camp over there, which is kind of unsettling for the men. So actually, they'll set up some artillery and there'll be crossfire across the river. And this is all after what happens here. Who did I steal this from? Okay. So anyways, you have to kind of imagine this as, a lot of people say there is one man that's a Union artilleryman that says he saw Jackson go by, and he was dressed in, actually a blue uniform.
Right.
The blue uniform that he used to have when he was at VMI. Well, there's actually definitive proof that about a month before on his way to McDowell, he had changed his uniform to a gray uniform. So whatever that man said, he either was really colorblind or really wasn't here, one or the other. But there's stories that Jackson wrote up to the men that were here setting up and, said, guys, bring it across. That never happened. Probably he was halfway across the bridge before they even got the artillery piece in place. But anyways, here we are in a point in history. You should know too, there's going to be a battle that takes place at Cross Keys that we're going to go to about 10:15, 10:30. And after that battle, they have to bring all those men and artillery pieces and everything across this bridge, then across that temporary bridge that's being built over here. After they get everyone across, actually almost everybody, they forget that there's a regiment way downriver. And somebody says, wait, we're missing some people. They send a messenger down, he comes back with that stray regiment. Then they burn this bridge. And this bridge is not replaced until 1869, I believe. So if you were going to get out of town here, across the North River, you'd have to do it the same way you would across this river. And that means that for several years there would be no replacement bridge here. But, are there any questions? Yes?
So when the Pennsylvanians retreated, they
Went right back.
They went across the lower ford?
They went through the middle ford. They came back the way that they had come in.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly the same way they came in. But all of that action takes place here. And like Jim said, there are three cavalry charges. And when those Pennsylvania men decide to leave town, they get out as fast as they can. And remember, the only way to get across the river is really by horse. Because the horse can wade, whereas a man would be swept downstream. Yes?
This was a covered bridge, right?
It was a covered bridge, that's right. And it was I've heard a couple of stories. They say in town here, if you talk to folks, it was a 2-lane covered bridge, which would be pretty substantial for the time. But as long as it was, you get a horse and wagon halfway across the bridge, how are you going to turn around? You know what I mean? So I can see where they would have had 2-way traffic on a bridge as big and as expensive as this one was. Any other questions?
That was here then.
Yeah, would have been 3 in Jordan's time. Yes. The rest of those guys, minus these 2, would end up at Fort Republic the next day on a place called the Colon. And that's something that we're going to go to do this afternoon instead. Because at the Colon, by the way, we've added this spring, we added 7 more.
And you volunteered for them.
I do.
But they just forgot to tell y'all.
That's right. I like the way you put that. Yes, well, there had been rumors they were going to do it, but nobody knew. Jim and I didn't know they had done it, and I had a group of people, and it's like, I don't know, where did all these markers come from? And they've done a tremendous job. And interpretation of that battlefield, they're adding, I found this out accidentally too, there's a road that goes up and comes along the back of the coaling where all of those artillery pieces, there were like 14 artillery pieces on the coaling, and in the next few months you'll actually be able to drive up and see where those artillery pieces were at the coaling. So all of that is being done. The bridge that they added, I drove over there the other day trying to find the bridge and I couldn't find it. I got to the top of the hill and I looked down at the base and I said, how did I miss that? It was right there in plain sight. But anyways, there's been a lot that's been done, and there's a lot more that's being done. There's a whole new, like 20-acre parcel of land that's being preserved. It was announced last week. The foundation has nearly 8,000 acres that they've preserved here in the Shenandoah Valley, which is pretty substantial. Any other questions? Yes?
Why was this bridge never kept up or tore down?
After the Civil War,
Yeah.
nobody had any money. And so rebuilding this bridge would be a major undertaking if you think about it. And it was eventually done. And then that bridge was replaced by that one over there in 1952.
Huh?
And then about 4 years after this was done, they finally put a bridge in across the South River.
Okay.
And then that bridge has been replaced once since as well. Needs to be replaced again, I think.
Madison Hall, you say burned down?
It burned down, I think, in 1903, and it was replaced with a house that looks almost, I would say 90% of what the other house looked like. And if you go there to the end of this road and bear to the right, if you go a few yards longer and go to the left, that's where all of the wagons were. But the Madison Hall is actually right there on the left. And if you guys want to look, you can, but it does drop off rather precipitously. Is that the word? I've only lost one person there. But you know, when you're a guide and you lose somebody, just go on to the next group. You know? I did lose somebody in a cow field not far